All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, where I learned this truth from, and I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And, today is October 9th, 2023. And I want to go into this article from Reuters, and it says, analysis. Russian nuclear test could send warning signal, prompt others to follow suit. So, I'm just going to go into this article and bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. So, as we know, these nations are pretty much gearing up for World War III. As you can see, Russia, China and North Korea have been testing, nuclear weapons, Meanwhile, the U.S. is developing, missile defense systems because at the end of the day, Esau Edom, he knows the fate of this place, which is going to be destroyed, So it says Russia may be paving the way to conduct a nuclear test, a move that would sharply raise tensions with the West and likely prompt other world powers to resume testing for the first time this century. President Vladimir Putin last week said Russia's parliament should consider withdrawing Moscow's ratification of the 1996 Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, or CTBT, which prohibits tests involving nuclear explosions. Parliament leaders were due to discuss the issue on Monday. Some Western security analysts now see a growing likelihood of a Russian test, even though Putin said the aim was only to mirror the position of the United States, which has signed but not ratified the treaty. A Russian nuclear test is clearly very much on the cards now. I don't think it's a certainty, but it shouldn't surprise anybody if that happens, said James Acton, co-director of the Nuclear Policy Program at Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Matthew Harries, director of proliferation and nuclear policy at the RUSI think tank in London, said canceling Russia's ratification would create a legal and presentational framework for Russia to test if it wants to. If Moscow did conduct a test, he said, it would be a strong form of signaling to put the nuclear threat in people's minds, to try to resolve and evoke fear. But pretty much that thought is in the back of these people's minds, that a third world war is going to happen, that a nuclear war is going to take place, where missiles are going to be used, and ultimately that's what's going to happen. We're in the last days where pretty much, all of these nuclear weapons that are being developed are going to be used during this third world war, and just to make quick mention of it, you have that attack that happened, on the land of Israel, by Hamas, those Palestinians, which again, the modern day Palestinians are, the so-called Ishmaelites. No, not the so-called Ishmaelites, the so-called Arabs, which would be the biblical Ishmaelites, but, the original Palestinians would be, the Philistines, Hamites, which I just learned that recently, watching the brother's video, but, those are the original Palestinians, but you have that attack that happened on that land, but pretty much that, like other brothers have said, this could, be a build up to World War III. And like, I've mentioned, that something is going to happen in that land to pretty much where, the main two nations that are going to be involved in this war, Russia and the United States will get involved. Now, you pretty much have this attack that happened, but we're just going to see where it goes because, Russia is still at war with Ukraine, and now you have, Gaza at war with Israel. So we'll see what happens, but a nuclear threat is, on the table. Nuclear war is going to happen, Says former Soviet and Russian diplomat Nikolai Sokov went further, saying a Russian nuclear test would mark a very serious escalation towards actually using an atomic weapon, and that is going to happen. Says for that reason, Sokov said he did not expect Russia to test at this point. Rather, he said reciting ratification would be a political step and part of a wider review of Moscow's security obligations to remove perceived imbalances and level the field with the United States. At this moment, I see a nuclear test as unlikely, but the situation is very tense and an escalation is not impossible, said Sokov. Now senior fellow, Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation, says he said he could envisage a Russian nuclear test as part of a scenario where the Ukraine war was going very badly for Putin. When clearly that's not the case, Again, if Russia wanted to end this war with Ukraine, all they have to do is just send one missile over there. But again, as biblical prophecy, these wars have to pretty much, ramp up until this main war. Says the trick is to get very close to nuclear use, but avoid it, to force the adversary to take a step back so the U.S. and NATO think, is it worth it? To change the calculation of costs and benefits, Sokov in a telephone interview says at some point you may need to show that you're very, very serious about possibly using nuclear weapons, that that's where a nuclear underground test can play a big role. Now again, Putin, Kim Jong-un, and I forget, the president or prime minister name in China, but pretty much they're showing the U.S. that they're serious about using these weapons. Kim Jong-un is just one example. He's very serious. That man is ready to destroy this place, but Russia is going to destroy this place during this war. Ultimately it's going to be our Lord Yahweh Shai, and the angels, but on a smaller scale it's going to be Russia. Says actually using nuclear weapons, but the risk in such a scenario was that you can simply lose control of events, and the logic of escalation could lead him to use them even if that was not his intention at the start. So I'm just going to read a little bit more. It says nuclear taboo. And then this is the part that was interesting to me. It says Russia has not conducted a nuclear test since 1990, the year before the collapse of the Soviet Union. It ratified the CTBT in 2000. So yes, as you can see, Russia is trying to conduct a nuclear test now. So they haven't conducted a nuclear test in 33 years, since the collapse of the Soviet Union. But again, the Lord is stirring up, those Russians. He's putting that old Soviet Union spirit back on them, So I'm just going to read a little bit more. It says, although the treaty was not formally come into force because others, including the United States, China, India, Pakistan, and Russia have not ratified, it has effectively made nuclear testing taboo. Only North Korea has conducted a test involving a nuclear explosion this century. Acton said it's like it was plausible, as Sokol said, that Putin was preparing the option of a nuclear test as a warning signal if things went very badly for him in Ukraine. But he said it was also possible that Putin had already decided that he was going to test, irrespective of what was happening in the war. In that case, he said the test would be more of a statement. It's like the test would be more a statement about Russia's intention to further develop its nuclear weapons and about their growing importance in its defense posture at a time when its conventional forces have struggled in Ukraine. So that's pretty much all I'm going to read, on that. But again, as you can see, again, this third world war is ramping up. These world leaders aren't joking. They're not playing around. Primarily Vladimir Putin. This man is ready to take this place out. So I'm just going to get to the scriptures. I'm going to start in the book of Revelation, chapter 11, and verse 14. It says, "The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly." So yes, this third world war, World War III, is coming quickly, because you can see the war with Russia and Ukraine, and then, this now war between Gaza and Israel that's taking place, as we speak. This war is going to ramp up into ultimately the Third World War, So, just real quick, I'm going to bring this out since I mentioned it. Well, since it mentioned it in that article. This is the book of Ezekiel chapter 38. I'm going to start at verse 1. And it says, "And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Slakia, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed in all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarma of the north quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. So yes, that's what ultimately Russia is doing. The Lord is putting the hooks back into their jaws, meaning he's turning them back into that old Soviet Union spirit, Because again, as you see in the article, it said that Russia hasn't conducted a test since 1990, that was 33 years ago. Now they're ready, to conduct another test again because that old Soviet Union is coming back again, It's like, and this is a very, very serious time that we're living in, where these things are going to happen, excuse me. So I'm going to jump to the book of Matthew, chapter 24 and verse 6, and it says, And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yes and yes. It's like, but the end is not yet. And yes, these things have to come to pass, otherwise, we pretty much won't be able to get into the kingdom. These last few prophecies have to take place, but ultimately we know before this third world war happens, the prophecy of Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16, the mandatory implementation of the mark of the beast has to come to pass as well, before this destruction takes place. Verse 7, and it says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. And yes, what we're seeing now in the news between, these particular countries that are at war with each other, these is just the beginning of sorrows, because things are going to escalate as well. Now, again, we're going to see what happens, with those Israelis, and those Ishmaelites over there, because as we know, those people are not the real Israelites, They are Edomites of the tribe of Amalek, to be specific, So I'm going to bring this out real quick. The book of Zechariah, chapter 9 and verse 6, and it says, and a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. And yes, again, as I mentioned, because a brother mentioned it, after I watched this video, that, the original Palestinians are the Philistines, so-called Hamites, or so-called Africans, which would be Hamites, But, that bastard that is dwelling in Ashdod are those so-called you-wish people, as another brother says, calls them, because they wish that they were us. They're pretty much pretending to be us because they are not the Israelites, They don't call themselves Israelites. As you can see, they call themselves Israelis, But again, this is the time that we're living in, where a third world war is going to happen, So I'm going to come to the book of Isaiah, chapter 54 and verse 16. It says, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy. And yes, again, as always, this is going into nuclear weapons being created to be used during World War III. Those German scientists that the Lord gave this information to develop these weapons, because ultimately, these missiles, they're part of the Lord's army, It's like it says in the book of Joel, which I might bring out, this is part of the Lord's army, and this was going to be used to take down Esau, Edom, because again, this man's blessing was the sword, So I'm going to go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51. I'm going to start at verse 1, and it says, the headline reads, Judge, it's like in Babylon, judged for the sins against Israel. So yes, Babylon the Great will be judged for the sins that it committed against the nation of Israel, It's Jeremiah 51 and 1, and it says, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me a destroying wind. And I will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her and shall empty her land, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. And yes, that destroying wind is going to come from those missiles. Once they detonate, it's going to create, that explosion is going to create a huge mushroom cloud, which then is going to create, that blast, of fire, which is that destroying wind, that blast of fire that's pretty much going to sweep, through the land, And real quick. book of Isaiah, chapter 14, and verse 23, and it says, I also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom or besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. So yes, the Lord is going to sweep this land. Babylon the Great, is going to be destroyed by thermonuclear missiles, So again, I'm just going to go to it. It's the book of Joel, chapter 2, because I'm going to bring something out. Because a brother mentioned this at camp, which was actually interesting to me as well, So again, I learn something new every day. It's the book of Joel, chapter 2, and it says, the terrible visitation. And it says, blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. And there hath not been ever the like, neither shall there be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. And yes, it's talking about those missiles, because every nuclear missile that is created is going to be used during World War III. They're not going to be sitting in a museum. Every nuclear weapon is going to be used. Verse 3 says, a fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. That rocket system that is going to propel them from one land to another. And it says, the land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. And yes, that's the point. So right now, again, you still have parts of the United States that, is beautiful. But ultimately, once those missiles hit, it's going to become a desolate wilderness. Ultimately, this entire land is going to become a desert after that fire is done burning this place, And as it says, nothing shall escape them. It'll only take, the most it's going to take these missiles to get here is about 20 to 30 minutes. And that's not a long time, These missiles are going to be shot from continent to continent, hence, the acronym ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, because these missiles are going to be shot from continent to continent, It's a very serious thing. Verse 4, it says, the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. And yes, I tried to find a video earlier, to show pretty much horses running, but I couldn't find, a clip to feature. But pretty much, if you've seen, a clip of wild horses, or even, horses that aren't wild, but pretty much you see them all running together, and they're in a particular formation. That's going to be those missiles, They're going to be in a particular formation coming down, and you're going to hear them coming. Because just like you can hear, hundreds of horses running, you're going to hear those missiles coming. You're going to hear those rocket systems propelling them to hit whatever specific target that they're intended to hit, Verse 5, like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people shall be much pain, all their faces shall gather blackness. So yes, pretty much anyone that is left here on the soils of America is going to be destroyed. They're pretty much, going to see their death coming, because one thing to know you're going to die, but not know when. But these people are going to see their death coming, and pretty much, like it says, their faces are going to be pained, well, these people are going to be pained, but their faces are going to, gather blackness. Ultimately, their faces aren't going to turn black, but again, you're just going to see the pain and the anguish in these people's faces. It's like I'm a little excited, but you're going to see the pain and anguish in these people's faces because they know that, ultimately that they messed up, especially those that receive the mark of the beast. So anyone that's left on this land is going to be a part of that lake of fire, which is America being burned, you know. So verse 7, it says, they shall run like mighty men, they shall climb the wall like men of war, they shall march every one on his ways, they shall not break their ranks. And yes, you aren't going to have missiles bumping into each other, and they're going to collide and explode in midair. No. They're all going to be in a particular formation. And like it says, it's not going to break their ranks. One missile isn't going to hit another one, causing it to go off course. No. The Spirit of the Lord, it's like the Spirit of the Lord is going to be in these missiles. Ultimately, the Lord is going to be guiding them to come and hit, this place and whatever other places around the world that are going to get hit, Verse 8 says, neither shall one thrust another, they shall walk every one on his path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. And yes, this is the point right here. You have the U.S. pretty much trying to develop another nuclear defense system, which is, they're going to try to shoot a counter missile at it and try to, shoot it down, but that's not going to happen. Once they shoot that defense missile, it's just going to bounce right off of them and keep going. Like it says, nothing shall escape them. Nothing is going to stop these missiles. Now, a brother brought this out at camp, and I thought it was interesting because I didn't know. And he said to look up this word sword, right? And as you can see, it's the word sword. In the book of Joel, it says salah or shlach. The definition, weapon, missile. As you can see, weapon, missile, sprout, shoot. So yes, the key word, missile. What's that word doing in the Bible? Why it's there? Because that's what's going to be used. This is all a part of the Lord's army. And this goes to show you that this place being destroyed by thermonuclear missiles is prophesied, to happen. Verse 9, they shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb up upon the houses. They shall enter in at the windows like a thief. The earth shall quake before them. The heavens shall tremble. The sun and the moon shall be dark. The stars, Slaki, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. And the Lord shall utter his voice from before his army. Again, his army going into those missiles. That is part of the Lord's army, along with the angels that he's going to come back with. It says, for his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible. Who can abide it? And only the elect of the nation of Israel is going to be delivered from the destruction that is going to take place. Man, this some real serious times we're living in, man. Extremely. And I could bring out others, but let me see. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 49 and verse 20. And it says, therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, he that hath, therefore it's the book of Jeremiah 49 and 20. Therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, that he hath taken against Edom, and his purposes that he hath purposed against him, the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. And yes, like I said, we're going to see what takes place, with Israel and Gaza, because these are the least of the flock. And this is ultimately going to lead up to World War III, with Russia and the United States going at it. Then I'm going to end it on this. This is the book of Malachi, chapter 4 and verse 1. And it says, for behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. So yes, once these missiles are launched, that's it. It's over from there. America's going to be destroyed. The land of Israel, our land is going to be hit with missiles, ultimately to cleanse the land. But, various parts of the world may also be hit. But ultimately, America, aka Babylon the Great, is the only nation or the only land that's going to get hit with missiles and be left completely desolate, So Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakakwadash. I like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from, and I like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I see you, Shalom.